obviously I'm going for monkeyfish.
Do I have a choice?
No. I stole it.
Okay. Oh, pendulous breast herself.
I want to chase you through a cave. I know you do outside.
And we're going to talk about how wrong you are after this.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. First and foremost, also, I'm Jeni.
Oh, hi, I'm Tressa.
So I was afraid that my cat was going to be yowling at the door if I shut the door to my little recording space. And instead, he's just very involved in the podcast.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
I know. It's very exciting. So there's going to be assorted purring noises, some occasional, me moving around that looks weird.
Neat.
Listen, it's going to be good times. It's going to
I
be good
can't
times.
wait. I'm excited for this. I'm not.
I know. I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum.
Okay.
Anywho, we've got a great show today.
We do.
We do. And it's so exciting because, listen, our guest, we have met him a couple of times, and he is a tremendously nice human being. Like, just a really nice human being. I think more about what he does for reaching out for mental health and supporting other people almost than anything that he does for the paranormal. Just because that's the majority that I see, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me tell you.
You like that junk.
I do like that junk. I do. I'm a big fan. Big fan of that junk. Richard Estep is an author, a paranormal investigator, and TV personality. You might have seen him on TV's Haunted Case Files, Haunted Hospitals, Paranormal Revenge, Paranormal Night Shift, Paranormal 911, Destination Fear, or A Haunting. His love of all things ghostly began at a very young age, fed by staying in his grandparents' haunted house in England and by a constant stream of binge reading at his local library. He began investigating hauntings in the mid-90s, and the bug bit him, and he hasn't let go ever since. He started to write about his experiences in 2013 and now has north of 30 books that are either on the market or contracted to be released in the near future. Please help me welcome Richard.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Night. It's nighttime, right? It's right.
It's nighttime somewhere.
Yeah. How are you on this fine Tuesday night?
Oh, it's Tuesday evening. Yeah, I'm doing fantastically well. Thank you.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Hope your listeners are too.
Listening live as we are live, recording all of what? It's totally fine. Richard, first of all, welcome. Like I said, I know you a lot from being so supportive and so kind and so outspoken, I think, about mental health on social media and just kind of in your life. And it's amazing. So thank you for that. I don't think a lot of people talk about it, and I don't think it gets the attention it deserves. So that's rad.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's life's tough, right? And that's probably the single biggest statement of 2024 is that life has been tough. It's been a rough year for a lot of really good people. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And I think the less it's swept under the rug and the more we talk about it, the more we can get through this together.
I disagree. This year is everybody's year. It's going to be great. We're going to have an untethered, amazing year, and we won't even see it coming.
All right. Maybe you can make a clip out of that, Jeni, just so that we can repeat that on a loop. We need to beat Tressa over their head with it every time something happens,
We'll make a subliminal recording and make millions. It's fine. See, it's already starting. It's great.
Big ideas over there. In reading through some of your information, and from what I know about you, is that you are also a paramedic, which you've been for years, right?
Yeah, I became an EMT in 2002, paramedic 2009, and I've done that ever since. I gave up career in IT. I switched career fields to do that.
Yeah, that is such an incredible job and so very needed and difficult. Does the paranormal and the paramedic side ever cross paths?
It shouldn't. I know that I have a writing career partly because it did, in that I always had a reputation as being that paramedic who you could tell your weird stories to at the hospital. So when, say, somebody had a strange experience at a hospital, one nurse would say to another nurse, "Oh, that weird paramedic will be in." And I like to think they meant weird like he believes in ghosts, not, I've seen his browser history. And they would save those stories and tell them to me. So I kind of never really worried about having that reputation. I loved hearing those stories. I ended up writing a book called World's Most Haunted Hospitals. And on the back of that, I think when they produced the TV show Haunted Hospitals, my strong suspicion is that they literally just Googled the words haunted hospitals and they saw my book cover and they hired me based on that.
Well, yeah.
So, but yeah, generally those worlds don't intersect. On occasion they do. And that's not always a good thing.
I would imagine not. I would imagine that might not be good.
No, I had a lady recognize me on a 911 call while I was running a cardiac arrest resuscitation. And she recognized me from TV, and she actually had several of my books.
Oh, wow.
It was a very uncomfortable experience because I was standing over a dead person at the time, trying to keep him not dead.
Oh no.
That's the worst possible case that didn't even register in my brain. I'm thinking something supernatural came to you at work, and no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
no. That's kind of rude.
It was kind of a gut punch, to be honest. And I'd always dreaded it happening. And there are times when strange things happen. I'll get messages from people I used to work with, and they'll say things like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in 5 years or 7 years, and then I heard your voice in my house." And it turned out that, my significant other had TV on, and there you were. Those are cute stories.
Yeah.
I had one friend that actually was in hospital for surgery, came around afterwards, was recovering, put the TV on, and I was on, I think, Paranormal 911, and she thought she was hallucinating me in her hospital. Those are kind of endearing, but yeah, now I'm a little gun shy about this.
Yeah. I mean, it could be worse. He could be haunting them. That would be, they're bad things.
Hopefully no time soon.
Exactly. It's
let's
fine.
go with that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I learned was that you used to give tours at the Stanley Hotel.
Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
Yeah. I love the Stanley Hotel. It is without a doubt one of the coolest places, and they do not allow paranormal investigation there or anything like that. They cancel paranormal events. So the only way you get to be involved in the paranormal there in any way is to work there. So I took a job there giving tours, and I had the suspicion that it would all be, a marketing gimmick, that they would be just trading on these ghost stories, that there'd be nothing to it. And the Stanley deserves its reputation. It really is as haunted as you've heard. And to their credit, the ownership of the hotel, although it does not encourage ghost stories, they don't even like the words ghost and haunted there. They do not countenance, those being falsely played up or anything like that. I did not find any evidence at all to find that it was anything less than genuine.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and I worked there for 3 years, so I would have figured that out in that time.
Did you have any experiences?
I had one that I'll never forget. I had a tour group. If you've ever been to the Stanley, there's a concert hall that is just absolutely gorgeous. And I would take my tour group in there, and it was a summer's evening at about maybe 6:30 at night. We took our entire group, 20 people plus me, up to the balcony in the concert hall, and we all very clearly heard heavy footsteps walking across the floor of the concert hall below us. Like a stomp, stomp, stomp of big, heavy footsteps. And the story goes that's a fairly common occurrence, and it's believed to be the ghost of a former maintenance man who died, who dropped dead outside the concert hall one snowy winter's day, and is very protective of the concert hall. So I can tell you that 21 of us experienced it all at the same time, and there was nobody else in that concert hall but us because we checked.
Oh, wow. It's so impressive when so many people hear or experience something like at the same time. You can't really deny it at that point.
No, and there's such a a history of those kind of accounts from the Stanley, you know, that I find it very, very, very credible. Many of the stories that occur there, they're very similar. They're of the same sort of vein, and continue to come in like year after year.
Oh, wow. Outside of just being gorgeous, like I'd love to go. Like I don't have any sort of, I never have any sort of paranormal experience whatsoever, but
You're such a
still
liar.
it sounds gorgeous and beautiful. So what else can you tell us about, like, yeah.
What else? What's going on?
What else? What's happening?
Jeni,
What's
come on.
going on?
Come on.
All right, hang on. Let me pull it back together. I thought you had a question, so I kind of slowed down my roll, but anyway. So all of your writing, when did you start deciding that like writing was going to be a thing? I'm always curious about this with authors.
Reading is always a thing. I always have several stacks of like books to be read, TBR piles around my house at any given time. And reading is, I think, my favorite thing in the world. And there's that old stereotype that most writers are simply just writing the stuff they always wanted to read, you know? Mm-hmm. So 2013, I'm pretty sure it was, I decided I would like to write my first book. I'd read a book by a paranormal investigator that I just felt was so bad. And normally I don't talk about stuff like that because I feel like anyone who finishes a book, period, you know, especially in the days before you could just upload a Microsoft Word document to Amazon and say you were an author. Like if you had gotten published by someone, you know, I salute you just for the effort that went into it. So
it's so daunting. It is, especially back in the day when you couldn't always publish something yourself, like the amount of rejection letters.
Yeah, and just as a quick aside, like, you know, I've gotten better as I get older at recognizing when something is just not for me, which doesn't make it bad. There are what, 10 million Twilight fans in the world.
Right.
Those books and movies are not for me, but there are 10 million people that adore them. So are they bad? You know, not necessarily. They're just not right for me. Yes. But this particular book, I read it and I was like, God, that was just not, there was so much in it I disagreed with. And then that voice in my head said, well, could you do better? Maybe you should. And so I then hit that psychological block a lot of people hit of, well, if I write this and nobody buys it, I'll be a failure and that will be terrible. So, you know, it's easier to, so many people tell me that they want to write a book. They have a good book in them, but they either don't want to start or they get a little bit down the road and can't finish. They're afraid of rejection. So I hit this psychological hack. I decided, because I was working a night job in IT at the time, that I would write the book on my lunch hour. So whatever happened, I was paid to write the book.
Oh, there you go.
That's smart.
So, hey, I haven't wasted my time then, right? I was paid by this computer company that I won't name, but let's call them BMI. And they were going to pay me to be an author on my lunchtime. So I would do my job. I'd have an hour a night. So I wrote the book on my lunch hours. I submitted it, and it was kind of a how to be a paranormal investigator sort of book. And they rejected me. They said, you know, thanks for writing, but unfortunately, this is not for us. These kind of books don't sell anymore. And there my whole writing career could have died right there, which is why I love telling this story. Because most rejections, they'll never give you a reason why, or you won't even hear anything. The book will just disappear into the void. So I wrote back and I said, thanks so much for the rejection letter. And I meant it. Can I ask what is selling? And they said, yeah, well, right now we're having luck with books of, you know, true life paranormal encounters, real ghosts and things. Do you have anything like that? Which was really them. There was a message there because they said there's nothing wrong with the writing. The subtext here is there's nothing wrong with the way you write. You can write to a decent standard. You just aren't writing what we want to sell or what will sell. So if you can give us something about true life ghosts, true life hauntings to this standard, we'd be interested. That's really what they're saying. So I encourage all writers that get rejected. Is it a complete hard no, or is it a not this time? And so I said,
excellent advice.
So I said, I've done this now for almost 20 years, paranormal investigation. I have quite a lot of stories. And so they said, well, give us 3 chapters, give us a contents table, you know, an outline of your book, and we'll look at it. So I did. I sat down that night. I wrote the first chapter. I wrote 2 more that coming week. I sent it to them. They bought it. That first book was called In Search of the Paranormal. It's still out there in an expanded 2nd edition. And for all its flaws, I will love that book forever because it's my first love, right, in the literary world. The first of 30-something with more contracted. So that's how it all began.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's...
Go ahead.
Okay.
I want to ask about Jeni. I want to ask about your experiences as a child. I don't know if this is an overused question for you, but I'm so curious. Like, you obviously had something going on when you were a kid at your grandparents' house, perhaps. But was there something that stood out where you're like, okay, there's something here, and I am enthralled?
Yeah, so nothing really happened to me as such, but the potential was there because my grandparents had this house that I would go to stay at fairly regularly during the Second World War because I'm a child of the 70s. My grandfather was off in Burma fighting, and my grandmother was at home, you know, raising one of those big post-World War II era kind of families. So, you know, talk about strong women. This doesn't get talked about enough. Like, the men all went off to fight, and quite a lot of women supported the war effort, but all of these moms that stayed home and raised families, while the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, was bombing the crap out of the city every night. You know, talk about stressful and talk about strong women. So anyway, it was only after the war, after my grandfather returned home, that the kids all talked about this old lady that had come into their room every night at bedtime to check on them, to make sure they were asleep, to make sure they were all tucked in. And they all described her the same way. Nothing scary about it as such. In fact, it never occurred to any of the kids that she was anything less than, you know, a flesh and blood person. Yeah. And my grandmother was like, well, that's strange. I didn't have anybody in the house. Nobody came in. Who would that have been? And then they realized that the kids were describing a former owner of the house who had died there.
Oh.
And, you know, we talk about the reasons behind a haunting, and I think this is your classic mission-oriented ghost where they want to achieve something. And in this case, I think it was that maternal, I think she was watching over the household, and, you know, needed a second set of eyes because my grandmother was pulling all that weight on her own for the most part. And once my grandfather returned, the war was over, everything went back to normal. She was never seen again. But I got that same bedroom that the kids all shared, and I had it alone. So I heard all these stories, and then I would have to sleep in that room alone at night. And you know how it is, every creaking floorboard, you know, and I would lay there just kind of partly terrified, but also partly like fascinated, like, is this the night she shows up? And she never did. I like to think that she went on to wherever we all go, you know, and got to enjoy the afterlife, but that she had just stuck around long enough to make sure the family was okay. But that sent me on the road to the library, because there was no paranormal TV in those days. So if you wanted to learn more about this, you went to the library. I had best thing my parents possibly did was keep me supplied with books and get me a library card. And I read everything I could get my hands on about ghosts and the paranormal, which I still do to this day. And this was, you know, old school kind of books about primarily men in tweed jackets smoking pipes, wandering around old manor houses, going like, you know, this is where the lady in white is to be seen, you know, we're here with a good glass of scotch and a cigar as we look for, you know, that it was very, well, firstly, it was too male oriented, right? And thank goodness the field is changing and more diverse now, but it was so boring and dull and yet fascinating at the same time, you know? It was like those books, and I encourage you to read them, by guys like Peter Underwood. It's like Antiques Roadshow or The Repair Shop with ghosts. That warm cup of milky tea, you know, that just brings you comfort on a cold winter's night. And I kind of wanted to write and live those books. So right now, that's kind of the dream that I'm living. I'm writing the kind of stuff I hope some 10-year-old kid will get those same kind of chills from.
Okay, but you just said they were really boring and stuffy, so I'm
In a
sure
good
they're
way.
much better than that. Oh,
No,
okay.
in a good, but that's because they were so fundamentally honest, Tressa. Like, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of, I mean, what worries me today is by no means all of them, but so many, you know, content creators on YouTube and until very recently TikTok, right? It's not open that kind of worms. But you know how it is. You log on and you'll see a thumbnail and it's like this.
Yeah.
My night at the, you know, death vortex mansion of evil.
Yeah, where everything's coming at you all the time.
You know, yeah. Did I survive? Well, if you didn't, that's one hell of a twist to your 15-minute. You know, and there's just so much drama and so much, just call it what it is, crap injected for the sake of getting views and making money.
Absolutely.
Whereas those books were fundamentally honest. You know, and the amount of time they didn't find something made the times when they did so much more compelling, because they weren't trying to sell you a season of products. They weren't trying to sensationalize. They just reported the facts as they were. So this is by no means all content creators, right? There are creators out there that are turning out good, honest work. But I feel like there's this race to the bottom where if you don't inject sensationalism and fear, because that's what the world needs now, is more fear. You know, you're not going to get the ratings. You're going to get lost in the background noise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true. Like, if you are just starting out, you got to catch some eyeballs, and the only way to do that is to be classes. That's not the right word.
Well, and then you got to keep them, right? Catching them is one thing, but then you got to keep them. And how do you top last week? A certain TV show which insists that this is the scariest location we've ever visited since last week and until next week. And they've done that for season after season after season.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah, let's just look at the evidence. Let's just have a nice little cup of tea and look at the evidence. That's fun too.
Yeah, and it's very true to, like, whenever you talk to anybody, you know, I mean, how many times have we talked to Dave about it, where there's just a ton of time just looking around. Like, the majority of the time is not, you know.
Shane, why don't you go check out that hole with spiders? Yeah.
Watch your step. It's fine down there. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Just be careful.
I don't know, Dave. I'm pretty sure I saw an old World War II landmine down there. Oh, it'll be fine. Good to see those guys
leave us behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for them. Listen, I have something really important to talk about.
For those of you naysayers, I want you to know how much I appreciate how many of you grabbed a hold of my small package after last week's show. It is out and available. You can get both of my books, The Other Side, A Guide to the Paranormal and Ghost Hunting, and my brand new book, Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness. Both books are out. One, of course, kind of a how-to ghost hunt book, and the other story book of strange supernatural occurrences all around the world. You can get your hand on my small package by just ordering it right off of my website. You can go right to paranormal60.com, scroll down on the front page there, or go to the shop and scroll down and you'll see our book bundle. And I was so humbled by the fact of how many men put their hands on my small package at the end of last week's show and bought it. It was great. It made me feel loved and wanted. I'm not going to lie.
Jeni, I'm so sorry. I had something really important to say, but I totally interrupted you and I told you to shut up. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, please.
Wow, that was pretty good, because that was like a while ago.
Yeah.
You just sat on that, and then thank you. That's so nice.
Uh-huh.
So what comes first for you? The interest in the location, and then the paranormal aspect of it, or like, hey, this would be a really interesting book?
To me, it's all a human interest story. You know, I've said repeatedly that ghosts are essentially, they're echoes of history given form, but they're just us, right? They are us. Mm-hmm. And so what fascinates me most is there a human interest story to be told? And I've written about haunted prisons, haunted hospitals, haunted castles, you know, you name it. I think I've written about it in some form. And really, it's kind of a bait and switch in that, you know, come for the ghosts, stay for the people. And, you know, who are they? Who were they? Kind of why might they still be around? that's what I'm looking for, which is really what I look for in any book for the most part. You know, assuming it's not a technical book on learning a skill or whatever. If it's any kind of story or narrative, you should always be asking, well, why should I care? You know, why should I care about these people? And that's what I'm looking for. If I am fascinated by a set of circumstances that they lived through or challenges they faced, then the chances are the reader will be too.
Oh, I
You
like that a
just
lot.
changed my whole outlook on how to write erotica. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's,
No,
You're
I don't.
Well,
I don't care about those people.
good night,
We're still
everyone.
gonna get nothing.
So you're mixing paranormal and erotica?
Yes.
Books that'll
I mean,
scare you
I'm not
stiff,
my
huh?
twin. I'm sorry.
Books that'll scare you stiff.
Yes, exactly. You get it. You get it. Thank you.
Anyway, are there some stories that have fascinated you way more than others? Do you have any favorites that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, so many, and there are also quite a few books I've never written because I just didn't find that there was a genuine story there to be told as well. My favorites, I think, are those places where I grew up learning about them, reading about them, seeing them on TV, and then get to go actually to those kind of places, you know? So Gettysburg is a big one. I love everything to do with the Civil War, and U.S. history was my jam growing up. So places like Fort Mifflin on the Delaware, where our nation's history almost depends upon events that happened in places like that. Our world today that was shaped and defined by what happened in those kind of places. Those are the ones I think I fall in love with the most. I'm never happier than when I'm traipsing around some old battlefield, taking notes and referring to maps and things like that.
Oh, that's incredible. I was such a huge fan. That sounds weird, but huge interest in Gettysburg when I was a kid because I'm an Illinois girl, so Lincoln.
Oh yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
I mean, that was another one, right? The Lincoln tomb. So when I was writing a book about the John Wayne Gacy haunting of all things, I was in Illinois and stayed in very, very close proximity to the Lincoln tomb. And I'm a Lincoln nut. I mean,
love him.
Yeah. So I've never read a book about Lincoln that I didn't enjoy in some way, shape, or form. So we actually went to Lincoln's tomb on the night when they have Civil War reenactors parade. They fire cannon. It's fantastic. And then you get to reading all the stories about how they tried to body snatch him after the war. Mm-hmm. They had to hide the body. They had to lock him up. And now, that kind of stuff. Just, Lincoln. I'll be writing about Lincoln later this year for a book that's out next year.
Okay, I'm very excited about that because I have done the Lincoln tour, like Springfield, Salem, all of the places, his birthplace, and then of course, DC and the theater and the hotel where he died, all that stuff.
Yeah, Lincoln was just a phenomenal human being, and I think even more fascinating when you dig into his life because we tend to put him on this pedestal, quite literally in the case of the Lincoln Memorial, and then you read about him and this was a man with flaws and very much feet of clay, like all your heroes are, at the end of the day. We tend to forget that they were human and in some ways problematic, but man, the wisdom of Lincoln is very sadly missing in our politics at the minute.
Oh, the speeches alone. I mean, the Gettysburg Address, and then I think the only one that moves me a little bit more is Churchill. Yeah,
I'm a huge Churchill advocate as well. There is that great story, maybe apocryphal, about the ghost of Lincoln appearing to Churchill when he was in a bathtub in the White House.
I have not heard this. Please do tell. Although
that
I feel
is
like
just supposedly a thing. I mean, Lincoln is said to haunt the White House and has been for many years. But when Churchill was staying there, supposedly was taking a bath and saw the ghost of Lincoln standing next to the bath, which I just think is fantastic.
Yeah.
Talk about those two, great minds of the kind of 19th and 20th century together. What would that conversation have been like? That would be fantastic, Yeah, Mr. Lincoln, I'm taking a bath. Get yourself outside. Bring in the brandy, that kind of thing. What would they have talked about? That would have just been amazing.
Yeah. Why is it taking you so long to write a book about Lincoln?
I'm not writing a book about Lincoln. The book that I'm talking about is, and other people have, by the way.
There are
about
books
Lincoln?
about
Off the top of my head, Troy Taylor has a book called One Night in Washington, which talks about Lincoln and the paranormal kind of aspects of his life, spiritualism, those kind of things. Lincoln had this strong foreboding of his death in the days leading up to it, almost a premonition. But the book that I'm contracted to write is going to be a history of the U.S., but told entirely through the lens of ghost stories.
Oh,
that's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
essentially a haunted history of the United States, which I'm just very excited about. For the same publisher, I wrote a history of the United States based around corruption. That book was called Grifters, Frauds, and Crooks, and it was not hard to find material for, shockingly.
Really?
No.
Yeah, amazing, right?
Huh.
And
Great.
yeah, I talked to the publisher about it, and I said I would love to do this with ghosts. There is so much. People love to say to me, "Hey, you're British, right? They have so many more hauntings in Britain, don't they?" And I'm like, "No." And then they'll go, "But you have more history." And I'm like, "I know what you mean. We don't.
Yeah.
We really don't. I promise you.
Right.
Everybody has the same amount, but I get what you mean."
Yeah, you're more white history. That's different.
Well, and you have your haunted castles and things like that, right? And I get it. Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to do that. So it's starting with the first settlements here in the US, going right the way through 2025. I get to tell the history of the US based around probably 25 or 30 different hauntings.
That's amazing. I was
really
just going
fun.
to ask where your starting point was going to be.
Yeah, and if I was willing to go a little bit weirder and go beyond ghosts, you could talk about the disappearance of the Roanoke colony and all kinds of things like that.
Thinking about.
There is so much to be written about, so we'll see. But that book is contracted to be written later this year with a release, I suspect, next October 2026.
Nice. That's super exciting. Now you had a couple come out last year, right?
Oh, just a couple, yeah. I think it was six.
Do you 6?
Something like that.
Lord, I was looking at like the publishing dates on some of them, and I saw like 3. Maybe I just kind of got lazy and stopped looking.
Well, at least you have a job. You can just concentrate on writing full time, because that appears to be what you do. So, what are you? Do you ever have time to breathe before you go into those books? Do you ever breathe like with your lungs? What are you doing, sir?
It's I wish I could slow down, and I've just had the most delightful weekend. We got snowed in. Snowmageddon hit Colorado, and so I allowed myself to be. Well, let me just backtrack. God bless, my friends. God bless people like Dave, who will say things like, "Here's Richard," and he just put out a book between the time this interview started. and I think, and I get and I love that people find that funny. But, the implication is that, I just crap out a book every week. And the truth of the matter is that I am usually writing 2,000 words a day. I usually have a couple of projects on the go. Your average book is anywhere between 50 and 80,000 words. So, I'm putting out a minimum of a book or the equivalent of first draft, about a book every 2 months. But then, of course, there's editing and polishing, and there's all the other stuff that people never see.
Right.
So I really have multiple projects on the go at any given moment, and I get bored so easily. People say, "What is your favorite book?" sometimes, and I'll always say, "Well, the last one or the next one." So, and what I allowed myself to, no, not allowed, I painted myself into a corner this year. I had 2 book deadlines come up over the Christmas holidays or around then. One I was co-authoring, fortunately, and the other was all me. And I had such a busy December pulling 911 ambulance shifts. I really struggled to get them both finished. And I'm never going to do that to myself again, I swear.
No.
So I'm going to make sure that for this year, my last deadline will be over by the end of November, probably before Thanksgiving. And then I'm going to just take a month off where I can read and recharge and start writing in January. I need to hibernate in December from here on out.
Yeah, I
Right.
think December is a good hibernation because yuck, it's just a lot. That's a lot to take
It
in
is.
general. And then and then you force yourself to write 2 books, sir.
Well, and I love writing, and I never want to reach the point where it's a chore, where it's a job, even though it is a job. I mean, it pays my mortgage. But I never want to reach a point where it feels like an obligation, because I've seen too many people turn something they love doing, they adore, into a career, and then it owns them, and they start to resent it when it becomes their 9 to 5 grind. I mean, when I was a volunteer firefighter, I joined in 2001. I watched a lot of people that I went through the fire academy with go career because, hey, this is my dream job. This is cool. We get to help people. And then they would start to hate it and resent it, because, you know, a volunteer firefighter is there because they want to be.
Yeah.
A paid firefighter is also there because they want to be. But it's possible to reach that point of burnout where it becomes you don't have that choice anymore.
That's so important, like such an important message, just about everything I've ever done. Like, listen, I love doing this thing. I'm gonna do it to make money. And then a month later, this is the worst decision I've ever made. It gets hard. You burn out so fast when you do something you love because you want it to be something that represents you. And then, I'm on everyone else's timeline instead of just my own.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in paranormal TV. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be on something like 12 different seasons of shows. I get to go in, I get to do my thing, I get to have some fun, and I leave. As opposed to people that, they are doing that. They're on the road day in, day out, and it goes from being an adventure, I think, to being extremely tough very quickly. It's not all sunshine and roses in any field, right? Even though you may love it. So I've always been very careful of not letting writing become my grind, and it came perilously close this last few months. So I've taken a step back, reoriented a few things, and going forward, I'm going to make sure I'm not that stupid again.
You've learned a lesson, and now you're growing, and it's fine. We all do it. It's great. That's what happens.
Yeah. I would imagine that level of burnout, especially, I mean, it's impressive that you've been a paramedic for so long. I would imagine that the turnover in that career is reasonably high. And then you add on investigating things that that are good stories, but maybe sometimes not so happy.
Yeah, turnover in medicine is particularly high. I mean, a lot of my colleagues hung it up after COVID. We went from, being healthcare heroes that everybody applauded to being told, you guys blew this out of all proportion, and it was a scam, and you made it up, and so on and so forth. And I know a lot of people that were just like, I'm done with humanity. And I'm hearing this more and more anyway, but I want to go live off the grid. I want to go do something different. So they went and got realtors licenses or just total career changes. And I understand why they would do that. It's a very stressful time. I've been in paramedicine now since 2001, 2002, something like that, right after 9/11. And I don't really see myself not doing it because I still very much enjoy helping people, and I enjoy the technical challenges of the job as well. It feels meaningful. My personal belief is that in life, we all need to have a meaningful outlet. We need to serve others in some capacity. And then we also need to have a creative outlet as well. And if you can balance those two things professionally, then that's the sweet spot for a good existence. I don't feel burnout's inevitable as long as you are doing the right thing. And I suspect that burnout may be either a sign that you're working too hard, doing too much, but also maybe you're putting your energies down the wrong avenue, which to me kind of explains writer's block. I've never understood this concept of writer's block because, firstly, no other profession has it. I've never heard of nurse's block.
That's a fair and valid point.
I've never heard of waiters or waitresses block or bartenders block, mainly because when you have a job, you don't get to have that, right? You either turn up or you don't get paid and you don't eat. But I've always believed that writer's block is your brain's way of saying, I should be writing something else right now. Like my heart is not in this today. So one of the reasons I have multiple projects on the go is that when I just am not feeling a given project on any given day, I will go write something else, something different. So
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's important that you just do something. Writing is like exercising, it's important that you just do something. And even doing a little bit every day is exponentially better than doing nothing at all.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I think we have some more questions for you in just a second after this.
Oh, hey, Tressa. Jeni? Oh, I'm just reading my book by international TV sensation, Dave Schrader. I'm reading the book, too. I don't remember the name of it or who wrote it, but yeah. There, I like your shirt. You? I got it on monstersloungepodcast.com. You've got a great shirt, too. Oh, that's so weird. I got it at monstersloungepodcast.com, too. They have really great stuff. A whole variety. I know, right? They have everything. Shirts. Tote bags. Clutches. A phone case, I think. It's the best.
All right. You know what? Let's get into some drama here. All right.
Oh,
let's get into some
right.
drama. Harrowing times that you have investigated or stories that you have written about. Do you have any that pop into your head?
Harrowing?
Harrowing, yeah.
In terms of, I want to make sure I understand.
Like scary or dark. Like, hey, I got to get out of here.
I don't get that a lot with hauntings. It's an old stereotype in our field, or I should say cliche, right, guys? But fear the living, not the dead. So I remember very clearly investigating a haunted theater up in the mountains of Colorado, a place called Central City. And I was in the lobby of this theater with a fellow investigator. She'd broken her foot. So everyone else had walked off to the next location. And I was making sure that she was doing all right. And this cowboy, this Scooby-Doo-esque kind of cowboy emerged from the night and was just giving us this dead stare. And I resisted the urge to reach out and poke this guy to make sure that he was real. And then he looked at me and he said, "Are you kids cooking meth in there?"
It was a ghost.
And I'm like, "Sir, these teeth are British. They're not meth teeth." And turns out that this was just a local resident. But then he opened his jacket and there was like a pistol hanging in a shoulder holster. And he said, "Okay, no drugs, though. We know how to make people disappear in this town." And then off he disappeared into the night.
Oh.
So everyone's got like that experience, with someone that just terrified you. And it almost always is not the ghost. I've done serial killer locations like Fox Hollow Farm, the Herb Baumeister haunting, the John Wayne Gacy case. Those all had the potential to be, definitely dark. The Sally House in Atchison, Kansas. Some of the best night's sleep I've ever had, unfortunately, but I know people that have been chased out of that house at 2 a.m. by paranormal activity that just wouldn't go back. I will say, though, that leaving the Sally House after 2 different mediums independently of one another had warned me that there was something negative in that house, something dark that had attached itself to me. I kind of think, well, what can I do about that other than get home and have the biggest Himalayan salt bath you ever had? I was about maybe half an hour outside of Atchison, heading west for Colorado on the freeway, and one of my brand new tires blew spinning across the road.
Oh my gosh.
And one of those mediums reached out again and said, something in that house doesn't want you leaving and telling its story.
Oh.
So that kind of gave me the chills.
Yeah, just a scooch bit. And I'm sorry to giggle earlier. Whenever somebody says, a large amount of something, I'm just picturing Scrooge McDuck diving into just right into the Himalayan salt.
Well, I used to be a hazmat tech as part of my job, and so we would regularly clean up meth labs and things like that. I would put on the level A hazmat suits, and the decontamination we would go through after that was still less than I get when I come home from some places. And my neighbors look out of the window and they see my wife with like the sage and all that stuff, and they're just like, "Oh, I wonder what haunted crap hole Richard has been at." The neighbors don't even raise an eyebrow now, but they see like me getting decommed spiritually before I can cross my own threshold into my home. So
good for you for doing the work too, because so many people are just like, and that's a wrap. Bye.
I used to make fun of psychic protection, and for my sins there, because that was hubris and arrogance, I think, I brought something home with me one year, and as an agnostic, you've not eaten humble pie until you've had to call your friend who's a Catholic priest and have him come bless your house for you.
Yeah, I bet.
Because we were seeing shadow figures in the house, dog was barking at nothing, heard a woman's voice from the empty basement, pictures falling off of shelves, and that's when I finally called him in, and everything calmed down after he came in and blessed the house. And I said, is this okay that I don't believe in the same stuff you do? And he just looked at me and he's like, as long as he believes in you. Which I thought was great.
Yeah. It's like Santa.
But yeah, taking belief is such a powerful part of what we do, but taking all that seriously. So I share that story regularly because I think for 20 years I'd investigated the paranormal and had kind of scoffed at the idea of psychic protection. And I've come to believe that it doesn't matter what rock or stone or powder you use. It's the belief and the intent behind it that offers protection. So, so I always encourage people now, take this seriously, and whatever works for you, make sure that it just works for you.
You probably had a backup in that house, like years and years and years of like all those investigations, and all these hitchhikers are like, "Hey, this is a nice place. What's going on?"
I'm just oblivious to that kind of stuff most of the time, and I think that so many people I know that have brought attachments home with them or have had things like that go on in their lives. And I guess I was just long overdue.
Yeah, probably. I don't know, but yeah, probably, yeah. Especially, if you were getting so much after just one investigation, come on.
And that was the year I'd done some interesting places. That was the first year, I'd done Waverly Hills and places like Asylum 49, some places with some histories that, were not the nicest. And I'm sure.
And a huge population, I'm sure, of so much activity.
I'm a big believer in the idea of like psychic cross-contamination, because you look at the paranormal circuit. The three of us, as a good example, in a given year, how many haunted locations do you ladies go to? Ish.
Rarely.
Rarely, if ever. Yeah. If a convention is there, then yes. We are.
Yeah, okay. We do like maybe 3
we are
at the most.
Fascinated, but we are not investigators.
So 3 or 4, but then you also go to events, right? And then, we share some mutual friends, and those friends go to haunted locations as well. This idea that you can transmit a virus or an infection, why is that not possible in the paranormal realm as well? Maybe this is just my medical brain biasing me, but the idea that if I pick up a hitchhiker, a spirit at location A, I meet you at a convention, say, "Oh, hey, Tressa, it's been too long since we caught up. Hey, Jeni, what's going on?" Why then can it not jump to you, cross-contaminate to you? We all move in the same circles. A lot of us go to a lot of very dark places repeatedly. I think that sometimes this stuff might spread like an infection when we just don't think about it.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
That makes total logical sense. And
I will say,
now I'll just be at home.
Going to Missouri.
I will say that at the Stanley, we had evidence that some of the spirits there were exactly that they had come in with somebody else and had been like, "This is a pretty cool place. I think I'm going to stay." Just communicators that I've heard about at that hotel, especially the old Stanley Paranormal Investigation team that made contact with spirits that not people that died in the hotel at all. That had no business being there.
That's almost. Oh, go ahead.
No, just a whole new level of no, thank you. Go ahead.
Well, it would make sense, right? So if you're following through with the logic, there are certain locations out in the world. A lot of the national parks have those. Yeah, I'm saying national parks again. have a lot of those places where strange phenomena seems to congregate, right? So why not have that same thing with ghosts or spirits, something along those lines, like coming with somebody and just being like, hey, this is a powerful place. I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, I mean,
Gorgeous.
what is kind of funny, and people never seem to do this, is they'll go to a haunted location, they'll have their ritual, their protection, I'm leaving, none of the spirits can follow me, no attachments. They'll do some light work, visualize like, protective energy or whatever. Nobody ever does that when they leave Michigan Paracon. And I'm like, think about, this could easily be ground zero for attachments.
You got casino, you got investigators, you got get out of here. We should all be taking crystal baths in Scrooge McDuck.
But in all seriousness, if you believe in the potential for like, psychic transmission, paranormal transmission, that would be one hell of a vector for it, events like that. So, and yet nobody ever talks about, I'm back, and I just picked Michigan because it was one of the biggest and most fun, but hey, and also I know Brad won't sue me. But I never saw that on my Facebook wall. I've seen plenty of people go, I'm back from the Conjuring House, protection. No one ever goes, I'm back from Sault Ste. Marie, great weekend, bit of a hangover, protection, spirits, no attachments.
Well, I think,
why do I feel like that's going to be upcoming, and we're going to see a lot more of that?
Yeah, $5 protection and cleansing on the way out. You're good.
Yeah,
I think I just found my thing. All right,
I think
set up a mixture of holy water or something, and
like when you go through the water parks and there's the hose that misses you when you walk through.
Right,
those full of holy water.
Aren't you ordained too? Didn't you? Didn't I hear rumblings?
Me?
Who, me?
Yeah, Tressa.
Oh, Tressa.
But wait, are you as well?
No,
what is everybody doing this?
Listen, it's free. Just do it. It's fine. Listen, we're coming up at the end of the show. Give us all the things you want to plug, and maybe drop hints about what's coming up in the near future for your books.
And then I just have a real small question that doesn't actually have to do with the paranormal. No, you're fine. Drop all the things. I want to hear.
All right. So this week, if you are thinking about buying one of my books, do me a favor. Take that $15 or $20 or whatever it is and donate it to the LA Wildfire Fund in some way, shape, or form. And I will love you forever. I'll appreciate that. Then after that, some other time in future, my next book coming out is Dark Spirits in March, which is kind of a treasury of things which look at the darker world, of the darker aspect of the paranormal realm. That is a fun one to do. I love to write bathroom books. So that's the kind of book you should stick by your bathroom or by your bedside and just kind of delve into for some creepy paranormal content. Last book I had out was In Search of Demons by Llewellyn, which was a pretty extensive attempt to find how much reality there may or may not be to the concept of demons. And coming out this September is a book I've co-written with Tobias Wayland, where we went searching for Mothman.
Yay!
So, yeah, I'm pivoting a little bit by looking at cryptids and some stuff that I've always found fascinating but never gotten to write about before.
Fantastic.
How great is that museum? It's so silly. It's like the museum of a movie. It's
in Point Pleasant?
Yes.
That's a town that has one card and plays it well. And plays it repeatedly. But I really love being there. I love the statue of Mothman. Where this ritual of putting like a quarter in his butt crack came from.
Because it's got cake.
But I did it.
I
did it. I really hope that, because there was so much money around Mothman's butt, I really hope that the town of Point Pleasant, very smartly, I hope that they collect all that money and they use it to fund like the local food bank for a week or something.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
They won't then.
Yeah, All right, my last question is just personal interest, but what can you remember the book that made you 1,000% fall in love with reading?
Oh gosh, like a single book. Oh, that's such a tough one.
I know. I know.
Good question, Jeni.
It is a great question. When I was growing up, There were always books in the house. There were always books by my bedside. There were always comic books as well. So books and comic books both. It's so hard to nail it down to a single book, but probably Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
That is a
fantastic.
classic. Mine was
Yeah.
Wind in the Willows.
Kenneth Graham, wonderful book.
That was it.
You guys are adorable.
Yeah.
Listen,
Tressa, you?
It was probably, I'm going to guess with Tressa, a book by Greg Lawson.
I don't know what you're talking about. Once I learn how to read, I'll get you guys my favorite.
We're getting there. We're getting there. You're doing great.
I don't have my outro. So listen, Richard Estep, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a
Are you
delight.
what cons are you gonna be at this year?
We'll make sure to come to all of them.
Yeah, the
Yes.
next big one I've got is Missouri Paracon. I'll be at
We'll see you there.
Tombstone. Yeah, see you guys there. Strange Escapes in Tombstone over Valentine's Day weekend as well. And a whole
Romantic.
bunch of other events already kind of filling my day plan. A Haunted America conference in Illinois. I will be there as well. So
Cool.
yeah, it's gonna be a good year for events, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. It looks like the calendar's really filling up. What's
It
that?
is.
Finger guns. You
Yeah.
guys, it's gonna be a great time.
Air horn.
Yeah, that's finger guns do not make air horns sound, Jenny. Come on.
My air horn guns do.
All right. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
So we've been talking about getting you on for a while, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate it. Everybody else, look for our socials. I don't know. Do the stuff. Jenny, do you want to help me out? I don't know.
Yeah. So visit us on Instagram or Facebook, either Monsters Lounge podcast or Tressa Slater or Jeni Monroe, and write us a message or a comment or like, subscribe,
We
all of
love
those
hearing
things.
from people,
We really do. We're terrible at the chat, but we're great at other things.
but it's definitely Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thanks for visiting the Monsters Lounge. Jeez Louise.